The happy hour had become a lifeline. For those of us that were disappointed, adulthood was not at all the childhood we could finally attain. For our circle of friends filled with daddy issues and even some mommy ones, our misconception of adulthood had stemmed from a sweet, sincere belief that when we became adults, we would finally have dominion over ourselves. We could eat, play, and work in whatever we wanted. There were no more rules or voices telling us no. The cruel reality was that our time of the most yes, aka our childhood, never happened. And our grapplings with feelings of breathlessness and burnout seemed to healthily blossom at the happy hour. Our entire lives had been molded and reshaped to please the toxic adults that we called guardians, guides, parents, old friends, or even exes. Now that we were adults, we were disappointed because nobody was trying to please us, including ourselves. For instance, Yali, a certified nurse and makeshift dietitian, had us all drinking low-calorie cocktails like gin and tonics with a splash of cranberry. She was vigilant that our engorging of libations did not induce a deadly hangover. For her and I, it was our mutual inside joke that no one knows how to diet better than a plus-size queen. Both of us spending our entire lives figuring out how to eat, or rather eat less, so the world would stop calling us ugly when we thought ourselves beautiful. Once again, childhood trauma remained unresolved in adulthood and finding its subtle way into our sacred happy hour. Usually, happy hours share the same cast of faces and the common guest stars. It runs on a sitcom concept, which is why at least once you will hear a table of happy hour friends sincerely discuss starting a podcast. They're not wrong. Some of the wisest, funniest people you will ever know. You will oddly not meet because if they are truly that funny and wise, then they know they have to be selective. Not everybody deserves to have your presence or take up your space, and happy hour friends feel like the special selection. People as mutually disappointed with how they are not doing better and determined to figure out how and why. For Nina and I, it was our fear to take on our dreams despite our devastations that we barely felt courageous enough to do it until we turned 28, which in woman years means Leonardo DiCaprio will put you in a hospice. I always felt like the happy hour was my inner child's version of an adult playground. There she had actual friends to join her and even push her on the swing set. She could speak her mind without being silenced or gaslit to believe her childhood intuitiveness and astuteness was irrelevant or delusional. Moreover, it was the one place where my father, and in turn my abuser's ghost, had a hard time entering because there he would find other ghosts, those that haunted my friends. Yet we had our own ghostbuster weaponry, the truth. And amidst gin and tonics, tears and laughs, our honesty about their evil made them go away, back to our homes where they could pick up their haunting again. Okay, so that is, in my experience, happy hour friends. I just wrote a song about it. Follow me at Daddy Recovery on TikTok. Plug. But I was thinking about, the happy hour and how everybody jokes, I need a drink. And how I found myself, especially the older I get, like the happy hour has become so sacred. It's just this constant. This is where we meet our friends and we vent and we discuss and we get wise and we get stupid and silly. And it's kind of, as I say that, it kind of reminds me of Friends and why that show works so well. There is this hour or two that we all make sure to have, sometimes every day of the week, sometimes 2 or 3 days of the week, sometimes only the weekends, where we just talk to people platonically but intimately in a way that we can't talk to perhaps our family, our partners, our other friends. And that's what I call happy hour friends. Just there's something about a good cocktail and people that are as lost but trying as much as you are, meeting up and sharing a joke, a story, and some good advice. And I wrote the song last night, and you could hear it on TikTok, and I'll probably post it on my YouTube, all socials attached. And it was just a celebration of the sadness and beauty that it is to kind of realize that your adulthood is not what your childhood should have been. And that has been something that I've been really grappling with. And I've been struggling because I'm going to cry even as I talk. It has been so sad to me realizing how much my father's abuse overwhelmed me emotionally, how much it stunted me materially and emotionally, because, my father, yeah, a lot of adults, I remember being a little kid and being called an old soul. And you could be the oldest soul and still be a child. And I think my father, part of his manipulation was I was an old soul, so I should understand everything that he was talking about and putting me through. I had to understand. And he stunted me. And he stunted me because I think, my Daddy Recovery has really made me wonder about nature versus nurture. And my father's nature was evil. He loved a good scheme, loved to be malicious, loved to manipulate people, loved when people cried for him. He fed off of being pitied and people apologizing to him, even after he did atrocious things. I remember one time I apologized to him for calling him a sperm donor. He literally put me in student debt because of this one time. I was talking to my friend, and sometimes you talk to people and they say something is horrible and you're like, really? It wasn't that bad. And then you see that other people, not only did they not go through your experiences, but if they did, they've reached a level of understanding that that's not common, that that's not okay. And I wrote an episode about it, and I think it came out or it's coming up, about how my father, he took me to a bank. My father never paid for anything for me, never got me gifts, was obsessed with making sure I knew that economically, materially, he was untouchable. Anyway, long story short, he takes me to a bank, opens up a bank account and puts $10,000 in. And he, at the time, he was like 6 years sober. I was going for a master's program, very young and straight to the master's, feeling really lit. But I had no clue how I was going to pay for it because I was running on scholarships and master's programs. It's very rare you will get a full ride. And he said, I'm going to pay for the rest. And my master's program was abroad. It was in Austria. Again, bougie, bougie, bougie. And he puts $10,000 in. I land in Austria and I go to take out money so I could start budgeting and allotting, because your girl loves a budget. I maybe have bougie wealth habits, but I love a budget. And so I could, start allotting and start understanding, how much groceries will cost. I go to an ATM and it says, I have nothing, basically. And at first I thought, well, maybe it's because I'm abroad or I'm in the wrong ATM. You're just so innocent and excited. So I go to like 3 or 4 different ATMs, and it's our first day in Austria. We just all landed. So everybody wants to go out, meet at a pub. And my father, all of the ATMs, all the different banks accounts say, I have nothing. And I go to email my father saying something's wrong with the card. Can you figure it out on your end? And he blocked me. And he took out all the money. And my mother finally, later in that day, got a hold of him and he said, I don't know why your daughter thought I was going to pay for school. She must have been delusional, because he would always say your daughter when he got caught. And my mother cried and I cried, and once again we would get through. And that wasn't even the final straw. And I told that story to my friend, obviously more detailed than you will see on Daddy Recovery. And she was like, that is so cruel, because that's where I had to get student loans and everything. And my father, his whole life, would only talk about student loans and how a burden it was. He hated debt. He loved to steal, but he hated debt. And he put me in a position, in perspective, that he knew he hated. He put me in a position he knew I would hate, and he did it scheming. I mean, for 1 month to keep 10,000 there, and the day before I leave or the day of, withdraw it. Not tell me anything. No, I'm going to go across banks, but because I'm abroad, I can't get to you. Block your email. These are plots. And I think that's what is was so crazy about my father's abusiveness and why he's an abuser. He didn't harm me. He plotted against me. And abusers like to paint their choices as this kind of, subconscious thing. But this was a plot. This was sabotage. This was, I want you to cry. And that's why he's a horrible human being. And that's what we discussed at the happy hour, ironically. And when I wrote that line at the end, I got very weepy because my happy hour friends, maybe it's the alcohol, maybe it's the adulthood and the disappointment of realizing that, what you were supposed to be as a child, free, just a world of yes, eat what you want, do what you want, go play. You didn't get that because the adults in your life felt they never had that. The adults of your life had a really poor or traumatic or misconstrued version of what it means to be a child, what it means to raise a child. And I think that's why I bring up the nature versus nurture. I was a very sweet kid. But I was treated by my father like I was this rebel, like I was an addict. I even wrote an episode. He really treated me like I was his ex-wife. And I think he mistreated me in the ways and told me horrible things in the ways he couldn't tell my mom, because my mom, he actually loved. My mom, he wanted to keep pacified enough so she wouldn't chase him for child support, so she wouldn't call him out compared to his other wife. And it's something I think about a lot. And the happy hour it's so weird. I call it a playground because that's where you can play and you have fun, but you could be really honest because kids are really honest. And we've all heard a kid say something they're not supposed to, whether it's something that their parents are doing, whether it's something that, the other children told them you can do. There's an honesty and a fun that you could recoup at the happy hour. And it makes it sound like so crazy, but I think it's just a symbol, honestly, for a place and a time, 5 to 7, where you just remind yourself you are supposed to have fun. And I know you don't have the career or the relationship or the money or even the self-love yet to make that fun consistent or actually enjoy it 100%. But something about just meeting people and resting, it's almost like rest, just chilling out, kind of reminds you that, you make all these goals of achievements just to get to that place. You're already in it. I want to be rich and I want to be famous. I want to be a singer. I want to be an actress. I want to change my career. I want to get married. I want to have kids. I want to do all these things so I could have peace and love and safety and home. And yet I go to a happy hour and I laugh so hard and I feel safe and I feel peace and I feel at home. And for a minute, all my shadows and demons and ghosts, especially on behalf of my abuser, don't follow me because they know they're going to get called out. They know I'm going to say they were evil, and I'm going to say it because I trust the people that I'm with are good. And they have no power there. And that's what I want. That's what my goals are all about. A place where I have power. And I made adulthood that, and that was such a mistake, but it was a child mistake, right? Who doesn't think adulthood would be great? A place without rules, a place without being told off. And it isn't. But adulthood can be the place where you find your voice. And that's what I'm doing with Daddy Recovery. And that's what I'm doing with my music. You can hear it on all platforms. Deandra, my newest song, I made it. It's coming out. My newest song is coming out May 23rd. And I did that whole announcement completely forgetting the freaking title. Okay, it comes out May 23rd. It's Deandra on all platforms. What is the title? Check out my TikTok, Daddy Recovery, in Daddy Recovery. Check out my Instagram, Deandra Reviews It All, where I do all these reviews. Seriously, what is the title? Business Class. Okay. Check out Business Class. You really will like it. All right, bye.